What happens when America's sweetheart meets Hollywood's most controversial royal? You won't believe what unfolds when Meghan Markle sits down with Kelly Clarkson for what was supposed to be a lighthearted chat about her latest ventures, but instead explodes into the most shocking daytime television meltdown in recent memory. The tension was palpable from the moment the camera started rolling, and by the end of this explosive encounter, one of them would storm off set in a dramatic exit that left the entire studio audience speechless. Before we get into this incredible story, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below, because you're not going to believe what unfolds when these two powerhouses clash in an epic battle of wills that had producers scrambling and security on high alert. The atmosphere backstage at the Kelly Clarkson show was electric with anticipation as crew members made final preparations for what everyone expected to be another feel-good interview. Kelly, known for her warm interviewing style and ability to make even the most guarded celebrities open up, was reviewing her notes one last time. The questions seemed innocent enough. Discussions about Meghan's recent projects, her life in California, and her thoughts on various charitable causes. What nobody could have predicted was how quickly things would spiral out of control. Meghan arrived at the studio with her usual entourage, but something felt different from the moment she walked through the doors. Staff members later described an unusual tension in the air, with the former royal seeming more guarded than usual, her responses to simple greetings coming across as curt and dismissive. The makeup team worked their magic while Meghan sat silently in the chair, scrolling through her phone with an expression that suggested she had other places she'd rather be. When Kelly made her customary pre-show visit to greet her guest, the interaction was noticeably strained. Where there would normally be warm embraces and genuine laughter, witnesses described a polite but cold exchange that lasted barely 30 seconds. Kelly, ever the professional, brushed off the awkwardness and headed to her mark, but those closest to her could see the confusion in her eyes. The show opened with Kelly's signature energy and enthusiasm, but as she introduced her guest, even the most casual viewers could sense something was amiss. Meghan's entrance was met with polite applause, but her body language spoke volumes. She moved with a rigid formality that seemed at odds with the show's relaxed atmosphere, her smile appearing forced as she took her seat across from Kelly. "Welcome to the show. It's so wonderful to have you here," Kelly began, her genuine warmth on full display, despite the underlying tension that seemed to hover between them like a storm cloud waiting to burst. Meghan's response was telling in its brevity and lack of reciprocal enthusiasm. "Thank you for having me," she replied, her tone professional but noticeably lacking the warmth that Kelly's audiences had come to expect from celebrity guests. The first few questions proceeded smoothly enough, with Kelly asking about Meghan's recent projects and her adjustment to life in California. But even these softball inquiries seemed to put Meghan on edge, her answers becoming increasingly defensive and pointed, as if she were being interrogated rather than engaged in friendly conversation. "I understand you've been working on some exciting new ventures," Kelly continued, maintaining her characteristic positivity despite the growing awkwardness. "Can you tell us about what you're most passionate about right now?" Instead of embracing the opportunity to promote her work, Meghan's response carried an unmistakable edge. "Well, Kelly, I think it's important to understand that everything I do is scrutinized in ways that other people's work simply isn't. There's a level of criticism and judgment that comes with my particular position that I don't think most people truly comprehend." The studio audience shifted uncomfortably in their seats, sensing the defensive undertone in Meghan's words. Kelly, to her credit, tried to steer the conversation back to positive territory, but it was becoming increasingly clear that her guest had come with her own agenda. "I think what's beautiful about your platform is how you've used it to champion causes that are important to you," Kelly offered diplomatically, attempting to find common ground. But Meghan wasn't interested in diplomatic exchanges. "That's exactly what I mean," she shot back, her voice rising slightly. "Everyone wants to talk about my platform and my causes, as if I'm some kind of activist first and person second. I'm here trying to have a genuine conversation, but I can already feel the judgment in some of these questions." Kelly's expression showed genuine surprise and concern. She had built her reputation on creating safe spaces for celebrities to share their stories, and the suggestion that she was being judgmental clearly caught her off guard. "I apologize if any of my questions have come across that way," she said sincerely. "That certainly wasn't my intention. I'm genuinely interested in hearing about your experiences." The apology seemed to only fuel Meghan's defensive fire. "See, that's the problem," she continued, her posture becoming more rigid with each word. "Everyone assumes that any criticism I might have is unfounded, that I should just be grateful for any attention at all. But there's a pattern here, Kelly, and I think your audience deserves to know about it." The mention of pattern sent a visible ripple of unease through the studio. Crew members behind the cameras exchanged worried glances, while the audience sat in stunned silence, unsure of what they were witnessing. This was definitely not the lighthearted celebrity interview they had signed up for. Kelly, still trying to maintain her professional composure, attempted once more to redirect the conversation. "I think there might be some misunderstanding here. I'm really just hoping to learn more about who you are and what drives you. That's what this show is all about, celebrating people and their journeys." But Meghan was beyond diplomatic salvage at this point. "Celebrating people?" she repeated, her voice dripping with skepticism. "Is that what we're calling it? Because from where I'm sitting, this feels like another opportunity for people to pick apart everything I say and do. I've been in this industry long enough to recognize the setup, Kelly." The accusation hung in the air like a toxic cloud, transforming what should have been a pleasant daytime television segment into something that felt more like a courtroom cross-examination. Kelly's usual sunny demeanor was being tested in ways she had never experienced before, and the audience could sense that something unprecedented was about to unfold. As the first segment headed toward its commercial break, it was clear that whatever happened next would be unlike anything the Kelly Clarkson show had ever seen. The stage was set for a confrontation that would push both women to their breaking points, and the tension in the studio suggested that the explosive moments were just beginning. During the commercial break, the atmosphere backstage reached a fever pitch. Producers huddled together in urgent whispered conversations while Kelly sat in her chair, visibly shaken by the unexpected turn her show had taken. She had interviewed hundreds of celebrities over the years, but nothing had prepared her for this level of hostility from a guest who seemed determined to turn every question into a personal attack. Meghan, meanwhile, remained seated with an expression of cold satisfaction, as if she had successfully proven some point that only she understood. When a production assistant approached to offer her water, she waved them away dismissively, her attention focused on something on her phone that seemed to validate her increasingly combative mood. The show's executive producer made a quick decision to approach Kelly during the break. "Do you want to wrap this up early?" he whispered urgently. "We can go to a longer segment with the musical guest if you need an out." But Kelly, despite the obvious stress etched across her face, shook her head with determination. "No, I'm not backing down from this. If she wants to make accusations, then let's address them head on. My audience deserves better than whatever game she's playing." As the cameras prepared to roll again, the studio audience could sense that something explosive was about to unfold. The energy had shifted from uncomfortable to downright electric, with everyone present feeling like they were witnessing something that would be talked about for years to come. When they returned from commercial, Kelly's approach had notably changed. Gone was the accommodating host trying to smooth over tensions, replaced by someone who clearly felt her integrity had been questioned and was ready to defend it. "We're back, and I think there might be some confusion about what this show is about," Kelly began, her voice steady but carrying an unmistakable edge. "This is a place where people come to share their stories in a supportive environment. I'm not sure what you were expecting, but I can assure you that wasn't my intention to make you uncomfortable." Meghan's response was swift and cutting. "Kelly, the problem isn't what I was expecting. It's what I should have expected. There's a certain type of interview that people like me get, and it's designed to make us look difficult, ungrateful, or unreasonable. I've seen this playbook before." The accusation hit Kelly like a physical blow. Her reputation was built on being one of the kindest, most supportive hosts in daytime television, and being accused of following some kind of malicious playbook was clearly more than she was willing to tolerate. "I'm going to stop you right there," Kelly interjected, her voice rising for the first time since the interview began. "That's not fair, and it's not accurate. I've built my career on treating every guest with respect and giving them a platform to share their truth. If you came here expecting some kind of ambush, then you fundamentally misunderstood what this show is about." But Meghan wasn't backing down. If anything, Kelly's pushback seemed to energize her further. "Respect?" She laughed bitterly. "Kelly, do you know how many times I've sat in chairs exactly like this one, being told that the host just wants to have a genuine conversation, only to find myself defending my every move, my every decision, my every breath?" The audience was now completely silent, transfixed by the real-time destruction of what should have been a routine celebrity appearance. Some were pulling out their phones to record, sensing that they were witnessing television history in the making. Kelly's professional composure was hanging by a thread. "I understand that you may have had difficult experiences with other interviews, but that has absolutely nothing to do with me or this show. I resent the implication that I had some hidden agenda when all I wanted was to learn about your current projects." "Hidden agenda?" Meghan repeated, her voice dripping with disdain. "Kelly, there's nothing hidden about it. The questions, the tone, the way you're looking at me right now, it's all part of the same narrative that's been pushed about me for years. And frankly, I'm tired of pretending that it's not happening." The confrontation was escalating beyond anything anyone in the studio had ever witnessed. Kelly, who had spent years perfecting her ability to handle difficult situations with grace and humor, was being pushed past her breaking point by a guest who seemed intent on painting her as some kind of villain. "You know what? I think we need to address this directly," Kelly said, her voice now carrying a steely determination. "You're sitting on my show, in front of my audience, accusing me of things that are simply not true. If you have a problem with how this interview is going, then let's talk about it honestly instead of these veiled accusations." Meghan's eyes flashed with something that looked almost like triumph, as if this was exactly where she had wanted the conversation to go. "Honestly? Fine, let's be honest. You invited me here under the pretense of a friendly chat, but your questions have been loaded from the beginning. Every single thing you've asked has been designed to put me on the defensive." The studio erupted in a low murmur as audience members processed what they were hearing. Many had come expecting to see their favorite host chat with a celebrity about light-hearted topics, but instead found themselves witnessing what felt like a personal attack on Kelly's character and professionalism. Kelly was now visibly angry, her hands clenched in her lap as she struggled to maintain any semblance of professional decorum. "That is absolutely untrue, and you know it. I asked you about your projects, your life in California, and your charitable work. If those are loaded questions to you, then I honestly don't know what kind of conversation you are expecting to have." "There it is," Meghan said with a cold smile. "The gaslighting, making me seem unreasonable for pointing out what everyone watching can clearly see. This is exactly what I'm talking about, Kelly. This is the pattern." The word gaslighting hung in the air like an explosive device. Kelly's face flushed with a combination of anger and disbelief as she processed being accused of psychological manipulation on her own show, in front of her own audience, by someone she had welcomed as a guest. What happened next would determine whether this confrontation could be salvaged, or if it would spiral completely out of control, setting the stage for an exit that would shock everyone present and leave the entertainment world buzzing for weeks to come. Kelly sat motionless for a moment, processing the accusation that had just been leveled against her. The word gaslighting echoed through the studio like a thunderclap, and the silence that followed was deafening. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely controlled, trembling with a combination of hurt and righteous anger that her audience had never seen before. "Gaslighting?" Kelly repeated slowly, as if testing the word's weight on her tongue. "You're going to sit there and accuse me of gaslighting you? On my own show? In front of people who know exactly who I am and what this show stands for?" Her voice began to rise with each word. "I have bent over backwards to make you comfortable, to give you a platform to share whatever you wanted to share, and this is how you repay that courtesy? Meghan's expression remained defiant, but there was something in her eyes that suggested she hadn't expected Kelly to push back this forcefully. Kelly, I'm simply pointing out the reality of what's happening here. You can get as emotional as you want, but that doesn't change the fact that this interview has been problematic from the start. Emotional? Kelly's voice cracked with disbelief. You've spent the last 20 minutes attacking my character, questioning my motives, and now you're going to dismiss my legitimate response as being emotional? That's rich, coming from someone who walked into my studio with a chip on her shoulder the size of California. The audience gasped at Kelly's uncharacteristically direct response. This was not the diplomatic, understanding host they knew and loved. This was someone who had been pushed too far and was finally fighting back. Meghan shifted uncomfortably in her chair, perhaps realizing that she had misjudged her opponent. I think you're proving my point right now, Kelly. This is exactly the kind of hostile environment that I was talking about. Hostile environment. Kelly stood up abruptly, her movement so sudden that it startled everyone in the studio. You want to talk about hostile? You came here and immediately started treating every question like an attack. You've accused me of having hidden agendas, following some imaginary playbook, and now gaslighting you. I've hosted this show for years, and I have never had a guest show such blatant disrespect for me, my crew, or my audience. The studio was electric with tension, as Kelly paced behind her chair, her usual warm demeanor completely replaced by raw, unfiltered frustration. Production assistants stood frozen, unsure whether to intervene or let the confrontation play out. And you know what the real tragedy is here? Kelly continued, her voice growing stronger with each word. I actually admired you. I thought you were someone who had overcome incredible challenges and was using your platform to make a positive difference. But what I'm seeing right now is someone who is so consumed by past grievances that you can't even have a normal conversation without turning it into some kind of persecution complex. Meghan's face flushed with anger at the direct attack on her character. How dare you? She hissed, rising from her own chair. You have no idea what I've been through, what I've had to endure. You sit here in your comfortable little bubble, playing the America's sweetheart role, and you think that gives you the right to judge me? Judge you? Kelly laughed bitterly. I wasn't judging you until you started this whole performance. But if we're going to talk about judging, let's address the fact that you judged me before you even sat down. You decided before you walked through those doors that I was your enemy, and nothing I could have said or done would have changed your mind. The confrontation had reached a fever pitch, with both women now standing and facing each other like gladiators in an arena. The audience sat transfixed, knowing they were witnessing something unprecedented in daytime television history. This is exactly what I expected, Meghan declared, her voice rising to match Kelly's intensity. The moment someone like me refuses to play along with the nice, sanitized version of reality, suddenly I'm the problem. Suddenly I'm difficult. I'm ungrateful. I'm the one causing drama. No, Meghan, Kelly shot back, her voice cutting through the studio like a blade. You're not difficult because you refuse to play along. You're difficult because you're creating problems that don't exist, attacking people who are trying to help you, and then playing the victim when they defend themselves. That's not brave or revolutionary. That's just toxic. The word toxic landed like a physical blow. Meghan's face contorted with rage as she realized that Kelly had crossed a line from professional disagreement into personal attack territory. Toxic? She screamed, her composure finally cracking completely. You're calling me toxic? This from someone who just spent the last 5 minutes berating a guest on live television? I'm responding to someone who has been berating me for the past half hour. Kelly fired back without missing a beat. The only difference is that I actually have reasons for my frustration, while you've been manufacturing outrage from the moment you sat down. The studio audience was now witnessing something that felt more like a street fight than a television interview. Some were recording on their phones, others sat with their mouths agape, but all were transfixed by the complete breakdown of civility happening before their eyes. Meghan grabbed her purse from beside her chair with such force that she nearly knocked over her water glass. I don't have to listen to this, she declared, her voice shaking with fury. I came here in good faith, trying to have a meaningful conversation. And this is what I get in return: personal attacks, character assassination, and public humiliation. Good faith? Kelly's voice rose to match Meghan's volume. You call what you've done here good faith? You've spent this entire interview trying to make me look like some kind of villain for asking basic questions about your life and work. If anyone should feel humiliated, it's me for having to defend my integrity on my own show. That was the final straw. Meghan's face twisted with absolute fury as she realized that Kelly wasn't going to back down or apologize. You know what, Kelly? You're right about one thing. I'm done with this conversation. She slung her purse over her shoulder and took a step toward the exit. I hope you and your audience enjoy tearing me apart after I leave, because that's clearly what this was all about from the beginning. Don't you dare, Kelly called after her, her voice echoing through the studio. Don't you dare walk out of here and pretend that I'm the villain in this story. You created this mess, and you're running away the moment someone calls you on it. But Meghan was already moving toward the stage exit, her heels clicking against the floor with military precision. She turned back one final time, her eyes blazing with contempt. This is exactly why people like me can't trust people like you, Kelly. You hide behind your nice girl image, but when it really matters, you show your true colors. My true colors? Kelly shouted as Meghan reached the edge of the set. My true colors are defending myself when someone attacks me unprovoked. What are yours? Meghan didn't dignify the question with a response. Instead, she strode off the set with her head held high, leaving behind a studio full of stunned audience members, bewildered crew members, and one absolutely livid host who was left standing alone on her own stage. Kelly remained frozen for several seconds, watching the spot where Meghan had disappeared, before slowly turning back to face her audience. The silence was overwhelming until someone in the back started clapping. Then another person joined in, and another, until the entire studio erupted in thunderous applause for their host, who had refused to be bullied on her own show. As the cameras continued rolling, Kelly took a deep breath and walked back to her chair, her hands still trembling slightly from the adrenaline rush. Well, she said with a shaky laugh, that's definitely a first for this show. The audience laughed and applauded even louder, showing their support for the host, who had just weathered one of the most explosive confrontations in daytime television history. And just like that, it was over. What had started as a standard celebrity interview had devolved into a public relations nightmare for Meghan Markle, and a defining moment for Kelly Clarkson, who had proven that even America's sweetheart had limits when it came to tolerating disrespect. The entertainment world would indeed be buzzing about this confrontation for weeks to come, but there was no question about who had emerged with their dignity intact.